Hello, this is Jim Morentz of the XchangeCore community and the SABER community, joining those two entities together for a special webinar. SABER is a private organization with the goal of bringing together business status information into one place and being able to share it out to governments. And it is built on the XchangeCore web service data orchestration. What we're going to do today is first talk about the David Griffith Hurricane Information Initiative, a little overview of SABER, but then the heart of what we're talking about is people who have experience with SABER are going to tell you about their experiences, which range from just getting started to long-term participants. I think you're going to find these presentations very, very enlightening. David Griffith was the National Hurricane Program Manager for FEMA. And you see here what Administrator Fugate had to say about Dave. Dave was one of the pioneers in hurricane planning and worked for me for about 15 years in a company called EIS International, helping to build technology applications. We're doing this as a tribute here during National Hurricane Preparedness Week to recognize both Dave's contribution and also to encourage organizations to participate in sharing information better. Dave's Hurricane Information Initiative is built around the SABER tool set to move information from the left side, the private sector operations centers, to the right side, the government operations centers, and fill that gap that exists in hurricane information. Functional components of SABER are depicted here. We start over there with the number ones. The private sector operations center can provide information in 3 different ways. The quick win way, something that everybody can do immediately, is use a simple spreadsheet, which the SABER team takes through the saberspace.org website, just a simple posting, and has a template that allows XchangeCore to transform that information into NEEM-compliant standardized data. That is the National Information Exchange model. That makes it possible for all those other organizations on the right-hand side, no matter what kind of software they're using, to be able to consume that information, whether it's a mapping tool like a Google Earth or an ArcGIS Online, whether it's an incident management application or a mobile app. Information becomes immediately available to the government organization. The second way that SABER can grab the information from the private sector is through a mobile app in a teaming arrangement with Spot On Response. SABER has created an interface to Spot On Response that allows a private sector organization to distribute the app to all of their individual facilities. And with a simple click, click, touch, touch, you're able to give a status of that facility that is shared back not only to the corporate headquarters, but also through XchangeCore out to all the government operations centers. And the third way, up at the top, is a fully automated connection when it's available from the company. And right now, Walmart is the company that is doing this. And if you want to know whether there's a pipe broke in a Walmart anywhere in the country, we can tell you that today. For a big emergency, this eliminates the need for a conscious effort, putting together a spreadsheet, and rather is pulling the information out of the company's automated systems and bringing that status information directly into XchangeCore, formed into the exact same NEEM-compliant standardized data and available to government organizations. So with that as background, the way that a private sector group is depicted here, the spreadsheet in particular, going into saberspace.org, they simply click on their company name, do a secure login, select the data file, and it's taken care of. Again, the mobile app or an automated connection are very nice, but all you need is a spreadsheet to get started. On the other side, how governments view this disruption status is in their own applications. Here we see on the left-hand side a more sophisticated application that is able to show red, yellow, green for those stores that are closed and open within an area. Very, very positive way to gather that information, understand what these stores have put in place. On the right-hand side, a simple text format. Print that out and see the listing of all the stores that are done and their current status. So SABER provides the data. How you, as a government agency, visualize that is entirely up to you. Because the value is one entry, many viewers. Many companies coming in on the left-hand side to SABER, delivering that information out to a number of different applications currently, and because it is that standardized data, it can go into any application, can be consumed and displayed in any way that anyone wants. The value of SABER is many companies in those three formats that we talked about going into SABER and completely available to any government organization in any way that they want to see it. All this is made possible because SABER is built on XchangeCore Web Service Data Orchestration. XchangeCore was developed by the Department of Homeland Security, expanded by the Department of Defense, which now has their version of it, which is called Keystone, that's certified for use on DoD military networks, and the private sector, which has made great contributions into XchangeCore since it graduated from Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate and is now operated by a not-for-profit. So XchangeCore, fully operational, currently deployed, and SABER is an excellent example of the widespread use of XchangeCore. Now we're going to hear experiences with SABER from a number of people, all of them listed here, a couple of states, private organization that's helping build the Business Emergency Operations Center, corporate organizations, as well as get a report on an exercise that took place last week with the National Information Sharing Consortium. So without further ado, let me introduce Persia Payne-Hurley, who's the private sector manager in North Carolina Department of Public Safety's Emergency Management Division. And showing here as background for Persia's discussion are some real use of SABER in the Hurricane Arthur closures, and you can see the various applications that this information was on. But for now, let me turn it over to Persia, who's gaining some very, very good experience with SABER.
Hello, everyone. It's Persia. I'm happy to give you a little background first on our private sector program and the Business Emergency Operations Center, BEOC, and how SABER gives us insight into the common operating picture by providing status and impacts on the private sector. So although my title is Private Sector Manager, during activations I become the Business Emergency Operations Center Coordinator. Our number one goal for the program is to help businesses continue to operate and resume operations, and of course I'm sure that's your goal as well. But this includes having physical access to business locations in restricted areas or curfew areas statewide, and that's through our reentry program, which I also lead. So in support of our goals for the program, for a quick return to normalcy, we've incorporated the private sector completely into our state emergency response team, which we call CERT, and we give partners full access to our BOC. That includes the ability to enter significant events and update their status and check for community access reports in our county boards, hospital boards, and so forth. So since our BOC is right inside of the EOC, we allow easy coordination. It's a physical and virtual hub for our partners, and we have representatives across sectors, including retail, grocery, med farm, home improvement, construction, transportation, shipping, logistical supply chain groups, communication and IT, banking and finance, convenience and fuel. We also have a Duke Energy representative inside of the EOC, and that's housed in our infrastructure group. So virtually, we're connected to several crisis command centers, as well as corporations and research partners in the region. Research Triangle Park is located here, and so that gives us even a broader reach nationwide. So partners watch the state operation tick by tick, including state declarations of emergency, signed transportation waivers from the governor, county declarations of emergencies, evacuations, road closures, restrictions. We also do information sharing and provide situational awareness by sending out shift change briefs by email to include situation reports, conduct coordination calls, and direct communication from the director. SABER helps us to make decisions that affect the overall response coming from the CERT, which you can imagine is a lot of coordination, and providing information on the statuses of businesses routinely, which I do, to the CERT and the EOC at shift change briefs. So all of this made using SABER an easy choice. The information we receive, expanding our common operating picture, we have this quick look at business conditions all the way down to the county levels. I want to give you an example. During our winter activations in January, most of the state was bogged down with snow and ice for a few days. A number of partners sent status reports by email, which is typically the way they do this. The particular impacts to our mid-farm sector wasn't fully realized until we began to receive reports directly from our good partners in Walgreens. So the information is trickling in slowly from the partners using email, but since Walgreens was doing a routine update through SABER, we were able to see what was happening, and the implications were important to what we were doing in the state operations with the DOT, clearing roads, as well as power restoration energy. At one point we had power outages over 75% of pharmacy operations, and it became clear since we used Walgreens as a litmus test of what was happening statewide and into our rural areas. So with people sheltering in place across 8 or 9 counties who were slowly getting power back, they were going on 3 days into this storm. So resupply issues concerned us as we watched weather reports, the highway patrols operation on the roads, DOT, National Guard, and these are typical issues in the snow for us. Alerted us to possible problems regarding availability of medicines to the public, as well as potential for widespread losses of perishable inventories at the pharmacies. So with all of these things in question regarding a resupply if the store were to continue on, which at the time it looked like it would, we knew so quickly ahead of time that we were able to consider our plans, communicate down to the counties, and prepare for alternative measures of what we could do. As I briefed directly to the CERT, it became clear that to everyone that this was an issue, and so we could see the connection going across multiple sectors and the impact on what we needed to do in the EOC. So by the time your reports were received and rolled up from partners, not using SABER, I'd already briefed the State Emergency Response Team. I'd consulted with Duke Energy on power restorations, collaborated with Human Services Group. Some pharmacies had power, but were closed due to staffing issues because of road conditions. There were implications for our hospitals, ERs, and as Human Services began to monitor our hospital boards, the picture rounded out. So we were able to stay ahead of things because reports from SABER gave us that heads up early. Duke Energy was alerted to our concerns. My personal emphasis that I put on the situation during my briefs to the State Emergency Response Team, just being aware of that problem and the early alert to the incident commander with the potential for negative impacts, all of this information getting it early, we were able to just really maneuver before a problem could be felt down at the county level. So we found overall that SABER is speedy and efficient. The folks there work with us to help us take advantage of the information that they provide. Input from partners in the SABER gives us a status that helps our operations section, logistics and services, and the senior command team. The clear idea that we get regarding the impacts at a glance, allowing us to make stronger operating decisions. This is the kind of exchange of information that gives us great capability and the capacity to flex on the fly in the response. There are implications for dependencies across other sectors that we were able to analyze, and this opened the door for mutual aid opportunities and allowed us to identify gaps along other areas. So as you can imagine, the implications of what we could glean from the information from SABER and the applications of that information extend beyond the sectors who are reporting. But more partners join this group. Um, the connections between the different sectors could be more immediately realized by the public sector. And we're learning in the public sector and trying to establish the best ways to operate. And this is a custom, I think it needs to be a custom process per state. And since we're a relatively young program, we're so excited to have this tool. We have a model here. This is Stand Community Stand, and SABER's helping us to expand awareness and build resiliency, improve our capacity to protect North Carolina's economic strength. And so that's really what we intended from the beginning in 2014 when we started. So our hats are off to SABER. Thanks, Jim.
Well, thank you very much, Persia. And especially thank you now.
And thank you, Persia. Great little explanation about how North Carolina is using it, and I appreciate that a whole lot. Let's jump on next to Georgia. Janae, why don't you tell us you actually were at the North Carolina private sector meeting when you and I met for the first time, and you've now taken it to the point where you've gotten all your management signed up and ready to go with SABER. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? And you're showing from checkpoint 16 there. The Macy's were closed in Georgia, so I put that up there as background to your talk.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Yes, I actually went to North Carolina last year for their public-private sector conference and was able to meet Jim and wanted to know more about this because we are currently working on expanding our private sector, which we call the Core Industry and Business Sector, SIBS, program here in Georgia. And one of our main tools that we use to communicate is WebEOC to go along with email communications. And so when we realized that SABER could be imported into WebEOC as well as ArcGIS, which is another tool that we use very much to be able to map different, whether it's transportation or, the private sector, just the different needs around the state where shelters may have popped up. So when I realized that, SABER could be included in both of those, I was definitely interested and got, like Jim said, got my management and leadership excited and signed on as well. So basically what we plan on doing is using WebEOC as well as ArcGIS maps to be able to communicate with our private sector partners as well as for them to be able to communicate with us. Now we understand, I understand not all private sector businesses are on this yet, but for the ones that are, it's definitely going to be helpful for us to be able to place which organizations and which companies may have closed businesses or may be on generator power, and to throw it on the Georgia map for just that purpose. We were able to see the live demo through Jim and get a better idea of how we would be able to incorporate all of this information with WebEOC and ArcGIS. So I definitely think, and so does my leadership, we think that it's going to be a very significant tool for us to be able to use to really get more communication out to our partners.
Well, great. Thank you, Janae. You have led the charge down there in Georgia, and we appreciate it. And I think that over the next couple of months, hopefully you'll avoid all the hurricanes, but we'll be fully up and running with your whole WebEOC team. So we've got a couple of conversations with them and look forward to pushing this further. So there you see, really just about a year difference from the winter storms. Actually, not even a year, half a year. Winter storms in North Carolina, operational. Today, that was December, I think, that we met, and over a period of months, pulling all the pieces together and ready to go operational very shortly. So
Absolutely.
thanks very much for that.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So now let's introduce Stuart Friedman from Rhode Island. And I'll let you do your own introduction of your title and all. On the screen, you see a little exercise that we put some information together with a while back with Target and identified some of the local Rhode Island businesses to simulate closing. So we'll just leave that up there while Stuart gives you an update on what's happening in Rhode Island. Stuart?
Okay, thank you. So first I have to say that Janae said everything I was going to say, and Persia said everything that I want to say next year. So a lot of this will sound familiar, but I think that it makes the point, and it gets the point across about the value that SABER has. And so I'm working on assignment to the Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency. And the particular project relevant to this that I'm working on is basically twofold. One is to stand up an ESF 18, or Emergency Support Function 18, meant to support the business community and essentially bring businesses into our EOC operation, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And then also establishing what we're calling a private-public partnership between the emergency management community in Rhode Island and the business community, and it's finally gotten its own name. It's called the Rhode Island Alliance for Business Resilience. And the idea of doing this as a private-public partnership is we've actually pushed it from the state side, but our intention and our goal is to really have this be an organization that belongs to and runs by the businesses in the state, with the goal of bringing that business community in closer to the emergency response and planning functions here. And the idea of making it a private-public partnership is that it will withstand, changes in government and changes in strategy and state budgets and the like, because the need for emergency communications and emergency response doesn't go away. And so those are the two projects that I'm working on right now. And they're separate projects, but they're related because as part of the alliance, one of the questions is how does that organization participate in ESF 18? And there's some talk about some sort of virtual BEOC type function, for instance, but we haven't worked out the details of that yet. But the idea is, how do we define how those larger companies actually participate in communication with the state? And I'm sure you could see where this is all leading to, but essentially our state as well uses Web EOC in our Emergency Operations Center, as well as ArcGIS. And when I was put into this position, I would say less than a year ago, learned from Jim, and I met Jim in a couple of shows, and learned from some of the other folks that are on the phone what they're doing with SABER. It was a very obvious fit to say, if we could get GIS capable information from the business community in an organized manner, that would solve a gigantic problem, a communications problem that we have between the state and the businesses. How do we organize information coming in from the business community, and then how do we organize our information going out to the business community? And so that the work that and the XchangeCore and SABER are really kind of the ideal tools to help that happen. And so ideally it's all about communications. And aside from, right now the talk has been around retailers using, large retailers in the United States using this product. And so in several of the companies that already use the product have facilities in Rhode Island, which helps us out a lot. But there are several new ones that we're working with here that are headquartered in Rhode Island. For instance, CVS is a pharmaceutical retailer that we're looking to get on board as well. And our idea is to basically push the use of SABER as a state standard, or is our standard for working with the business community. during planning and emergency response. And so the one thing I would say in addition to the dealing with the retailers is that we're also looking at how do we tailor the XchangeCore and SABER application to do something a little bit more generic to say, regardless if you're a retailer or not, as a business, are you open or are you closed? And what sort of requisite information may go along with that, so that in a very quick way we get an upload, we're able to load that information into WebEOC. It shows up in the Emergency Operations Center. It shows us trends in, power outages in certain parts of the state or some other bad things that are happening that help us to identify either large swaths of, like Persia said, pharmaceutical companies or localities or that type of thing. And so we're very much on board with this. We have a new GIS resource that is available to us who just started working with us, and Jim's actually met that person, and we are starting to move this idea into the Alliance meetings and working with the business community to help define how we make this process happen. And so we're very excited about this, and I hope I could answer some questions or participate in further conversation later.
Great. Thank you very much, Stuart. Appreciate that. And Stuart has done a great job. He has a IT community background, so he's been able to help point SABER in a couple of excellent ways in terms of using the tool most effectively for interoperability among the tools that he mentioned. So thank you very much, and let's flip on now to the Midwest, where we're even newer. But Jessica is in the process of really doing the first round of introduction on SABER, and I thought it might be beneficial for all of you to hear the way that she has crafted the message about the value of SABER. So Jessica, why don't you jump in now?
Yeah, so is everybody able to hear me all right? Just to make sure. So yeah, we are one of the baby, if you will, infant organizations here in Indiana to be introduced to SABER, and our BEOC is really very new. So how it all started was my company, Resilient Strategies, we work in public-private partnerships and just going around across the state and helping the private side get to understand preparedness, response, recovery, and things like that. Ultimately turned into, well, why don't we have this for within the EOC, the state EOC, and within our private sector. And so the Indiana Alliance, basically the Business Resiliency Alliance of Indiana, is a nonprofit, and it kind of came to fruition from all these meetings with the private sector. Also understanding that currently our state, Indiana Department of Homeland Security, does not have a standalone private sector representative within the EOC. So as part of the alliance, part of what we're doing and we're tasked to do is develop this BEOC to help facilitate communications between the public and private sectors, help provide resources, situational awareness, and really focus on the community restoration. So again, like I said, we're way new to this. So where I'm at in the stage of pushing this out to our board members, but then also the state that we report to, is in certain events the BEOC has been somewhat activated, and my lucky role is, I can say, if we had SABER, we would be able to do this. We would be able to see, what exactly is going on with our avian flu outbreak that happened down south. So I've been able to kind of plant the seed in everyone's ear that this is something, that we definitely need, something that we can absolutely use. So our relationship with IDHS is a strong one, and it's a good one. And though they don't have that representative, they're kind of calling on the DEOC to help fulfill that need, which is advantage to both of us. Now, we do the Web EOC along with the state. However, we don't yet have access to a lot of the great things that I've been hearing everyone else has access to, I should say, right now. I'm hopeful that maybe, down the road that will change. But the operating picture for us right now is somewhat limited. We can see things, we can respond to certain things, but mapping and things like that are not something we can take a look at yet. So we kind of have to draw our own maps and draw our own conclusions right now. So that makes it somewhat difficult for, actually, putting the BEOC out there. We're also virtual. So trying to get everybody to respond to us through, like, people were saying email or text messages, and then trying to filter all that information together, somehow get it over to the state EOC to say, hey, this is where we are, this is, we can do whatever, to help out with a certain event, is somewhat convoluted right now and a little bit slow. Again, I get to say, well, hey guys, if we had SABER, we would be able to take all this information, throw it into SABER, and then boom, turn it right around, get you access, get you resources that you need faster, more, quickly anticipated, and a better common operating picture. So my board is coming around, which is awesome, and we have a few in the state, Homeland Security, that are very excited about it. It's just a matter of having the right conversation at the right time. But we know, as far as the Alliance is concerned, we are going to use SABER. So it's just just getting everybody on the same page, kind of breaking through ground here on the struggles of starting a new organization. But we know that it's going to be a vital piece of our program. It addresses the concern of our PEOC members of information security and, vetting out all that information before, certain things are sent forward up to the Web EOC. But we anticipate training our BEOC members on, utilizing Web EOC and side-by-side utilizing SABER and putting the two together with Google Earth and what everybody was talking about before. All it does is make me so excited, because SABER is going to be so important for us in accomplishing our goals, helping out with Homeland Security, and then using the DEOC as an asset to the private sector with smaller localized incidents as well. So we're super excited. We're very glad to be here, and can't wait to maybe next year I'll be saying how we use SABER on a big snow event or something like that. So thanks for having us here.
And thank you, Jessica. Really appreciate those comments, your enthusiasm, and in driving this in Indiana, and we'll be working closely in the coming future. So, Jessica, from the newest to one of the original members of the organizing committee for SABER, has been involved for since the very, very beginning. Jeff Hine from Boyd Gaming. Different than a retail organization in the gaming industry. Jeff has been very active in promoting SABER to other casino organizations. And oddly enough, they have a very valuable role in emergency management, particularly in disaster recovery and in being able to be a source of cash. So I'll let Jeff talk about his experience with SABER and with XchangeCore, located in Las Vegas, and put a couple of images here and a couple of different applications of the Boyd Gaming status out of, I think the last one was from Checkpoint 16 that Jeff participated in last week. But Jeff Hahn, please.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the time here to say a little give everybody a little peace of mind from the current state of affairs. I can say definitively there's no better time to get involved with SABER. So in the early days, it's always hard to be an early adopter. It's always hard to try and pitch something that essentially doesn't have the buy-in, and it was a challenge. But now, because of the growth and fairly rapid growth over the past couple of years, there are now enough entities where it makes it so much easier to sell. So I will give everybody going forward in the early days of their programs a little peace of mind that it just continues to get better. So I represent the smaller end of the scalability factor of SABER. So people will say, I only have 3 locations, or I can't compete with a Walgreens or a Walmart submitting hundreds and hundreds of locations. That's real value. But the reality is every piece of data that goes in is important. So I have 23 properties across. I have a fairly good concentration in Las Vegas, and then I'm dispersed all throughout the country, a lot of it representing the Gulf South. But most importantly is every piece of data, every pin on the map, and as we can see, all of this information going into so many EOCs, that just becomes that much more important. So being a little guy, it didn't bother Jim, it didn't bother me, so we went ahead and proceeded forward. We went with the custom spreadsheet just for the simple fact where with 23 properties, we don't need that level of automation. Onboarding couldn't have been any easier. We determined the columns that we wanted to submit. Jim formatted it, and all we have to do is upload it. Super easy. That wasn't a barrier at all. On our spreadsheet, beyond the usual location and the status, we talk about certain things. We talk about ATMs, check cashing capabilities, if we have gaming, full meals, snacks, what sort of level that we're producing, what sort of services we offer. We also do our room count for those of our properties that have hotels. So we will talk about rooms that we have for customers. We'll also talk about rooms for responders, because during a crisis or disaster, we are in phases. So our first phase is getting everybody out. So in the case of a hurricane, it's evacuation. It is emptying out the place, keeping our core team there and getting everybody out. Next, it's damage assessment. What do we need to do to bring back our own property? And can we offer rooms to responders? As we learned in Katrina and Rita, when we're co-located or we're in the neighborhood of like the power company coming in. Katrina, we were across the street from the staging area for all the power companies coming in to restore power in the New Orleans area. Kind of became a symbiotic relationship. They had services to offer, we had services to offer, and then we started building from there. The sooner we had lifelines restored, the sooner we were able to be supportive of the community. So we, as a gaming entity, are not looking to recover to, get back to getting gaming money in. That's not our interest. However, the market down there, in week 3 of a deployment, someone's looking for something to do and looking for a hot meal. So if we're able to continuously update our status, that also says we're a beacon of activity, and people come and they see that. So having that representation in a format where all of these entities can see is a win. Now, being a producer of data, the biggest benefit to us is not only do we get to contribute, but we also get to consume data as well. We're a business, and we need things just like everybody else. So if we can see the same level of status of our neighbors, then we obviously can, it increases our visibility for recovery as well. So the situational awareness that we gain, especially from 1,500 miles away, because I'm sitting nice and comfortable in my EOC in Las Vegas while something's happening in the Gulf Coast, that level of oversight is perfect. Now, when we look at the overall benefit of cross-platform support, because not everyone has, we weren't interested in truly focusing on ArcGIS or WebEOC or any of the platforms, we just said, here's the data, and the fact that it populates to anything in a consumable fashion, that was the great thing. We had to format nothing. So XchangeCore and that benefit, when we talk about a sales pitch, and that's what we essentially had to do, oh, what's the burden on us? And when Jim comes back with, okay, we got that, yep, that's not an issue, oh, that's easy, and you start going, well, that's no barriers to entry in this kind of platform. So the great thing is we turned in a little bit of marketing as well, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Every exercise you go to, every LEPSI meeting, it doesn't matter the size of the business, it doesn't matter the reach, it matters about everybody's resources, capabilities, and essentially, because business is recovery focused, this is an essential tool all the way through the event, including up to complete recovery towards the end. So not only is it super important in the middle and the beginning, we treat it as the return to normalcy. Look at our status and look at everybody on the map light up as going, everything's back to normal. That's about all I have, Jim.
Excellent, Jeff. Really appreciate that, and appreciate all of your hard work over the last couple of years to sustain SABER when we were trying to reach out to other organizations, and you've been a great representative too. So appreciate that. We see here some real live action. The March 2014 Snowmageddon. Walgreens was an active participant there, all up and down the coast. And here you see what everybody's been talking about. WebUC instance, Google Earth, ArcGIS Online, the Spot On Response mobile app, all sharing exactly the same information. And while Rachel wasn't there at the beginning, she has very, very well picked up on the initial interest that Walgreens had as part of the organizing committee, and very much appreciate all your efforts. Rachel, and why don't you talk a little bit about it now?
Thanks, Jim. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yep,
so
you're good.
these are actually, oh, wonderful. So what I think is really cool about this screenshot and everything on this slide is that you're seeing things in different formats. And all that we have to do on our end is take a spreadsheet and upload it. And then it puts all of this information out for whoever needs it. Walgreens has about 8,200 locations across the country. And so when there's a widespread event that's impacting dozens or hundreds of our stores, it's really hard to get all of that information out to people who want it. So for us, SABER is really a one-stop shop. When things are a little bit on a smaller scale, if it's just a couple stores, I have no problem sending that information out to whoever needs it because it's such a localized event. However, when something starts reaching into dozens or even hundreds, it's really hard to make sure that everybody who wants to know our site status is getting that information. The most recent time that we used SABER was the exercise. Jim helped us out a lot with that this last week. And then prior to that, it was the Snowmageddon, I guess, again, that hit in January and then started in South Carolina, North Carolina, and then went all the way up to New York. Jim, you may want to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at one point we had uploaded over 500 sites, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's right. You were in the 500 to 600 range.
Yeah, and so the system could handle all of that, which is just great because at that point we were talking, 7 to 8 states, and making sure that everybody has that information is really difficult. For this, I could take all of our site status, put it into the sheet, upload it, and then once it took a couple minutes to replicate because of the amount of information, but once it was up, it was there for whoever needed it, which is a huge selling point for us. Because with all of these stores, we're working with all of our internal and external partners as well, trying to make sure we have generators moving and, that we're taking care of our employees and everything. This just takes one more thing off of my plate, which is huge. As for the public sector, I think that it's helpful information because I think that it was Jeff that was just mentioning, we're not so concerned about selling something at this point when it's a big event. It's just about making sure that people have their medicine. So it's great that people, whether it's Persia in North Carolina or Janae in Georgia or Maryland or New York, can go and look at this and find out which of our pharmacies are open. So that way, in case people are calling and they have to get their medicine, they know where to go. They don't have to call me. They don't have to call their local store. All the private sector managers have to do is go to SABER, find our information, and they can parcel it out to whoever needs it on the state side or federal or local. So for us, this has been a huge, huge help. We've used it most recently, as I mentioned, through the exercise, through the winter storms, and then also last fall with the flooding in South Carolina. So for us, it's been a great thing. We have our federal partners looking at it. I send it to our state. I make sure that all of our state partners know that this is where we post our information. And now that we're starting to push our partnership program down to even the local level, I make sure that all of our local partners information as well. So for us, it's been a great one-stop shop, and it helps me because I'm one person for all of Walgreens. It helps me get something else off of my plate, and I really encourage other private sector partners to into the system and to use it. It's not hard. I am one of the most not technologically advanced people, and so if I can do it, I think anybody can do it. For us, my next goal is that we actually produce an RSS feed, so that way it's even one less step for me to take where the two systems can sync, and SABER and Jim have our information as soon as that RSS feed is running. So for us, that's our next goal. But other than that, it's been a huge help. And Jim, I really appreciate all of your assistance with this, and it's just a great one-stop shop. And I think that's the best way for us to categorize this.
Thank you for your comments, Rachel. You guys have been wonderful leaders out there, so we appreciate it a whole lot on the SABER side. Now let's turn to our last speaker, Jeff Stoppel. Are we connected, Jeff?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Terrific. Yep, you're on. And Jeff is going to talk a little bit about the exercise that a couple of folks have mentioned last week, and how the National Information Sharing Consortium pulled together this exercise, and the XchangeCore information that went into it representing SABER, and how it was used in the exercise. So thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Well, I would say I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. I've been a fan from afar, and a lot of familiar faces and names, Rachel in particular, and Persia, so I'm kind of glad to be able to bring in from another perspective of a coordinator, and for this checkpoint 16. So I had the pleasure of supporting, the National Information Sharing Consortium, and we teamed up with Jim and the SABER platform, and we had a really, I think, fabulous use case here that I want to highlight that, Jim and I worked pretty hard on with our two teams, and it actually benefited by having people like Rachel involved and others here, is that for the purposes of this experiment, we modeled a national power outage down, and we actually tracked the statuses down to the county level. We actually integrated some of the providers' content, so we actually modeled a sustained power outage, and was able to take a map web service from the AGUL NIST platform, run it through the SABER XchangeCore logic that Jim then facilitated with everybody on this call, your various partners, and then you were able to see via the SABER collaboration with the NIST here, the power outages. And then what Jim did that was just so phenomenal is he pushed back to us basically actionable content from the stores, provided what they're doing around a sustained outage. And the real just pop on this was that we were seeing, I think the gentleman from Rhode Island said at Stewart, was we were seeing that idea of that public-private partnership come into play now, where additionally in this virtual tabletop we did here, you were seeing SABER content being, Jim, I don't think I told you this yet, but in some of the hot wash we had in sidebar conversations is people were taking the actionable content that was, run through the SABER analysis and playing internally. So like we had the Illinois Fusion Center taking the outages and think what they would do next based on content from SABER. So I just can't say enough of, it was a really powerful part here. And if you look at the top right tool, that's a screenshot of, we were able to take SABER's disruption data based on, a modeled process and push it back out to a community. So you're seeing a real nice blend of private enterprise modeling content and consequence based on public content and coming to the platform here. So I just can't say enough about that, Jim. And it really is, it echoes a lot of what, I think SABER, I see you guys pushing here, and what we also promote, which is a system of systems approach. And, we, our side, Jim, I've already talked to Alan, my colleague, and we want to continue to partner with you and collaborate, and future efforts, we're looking at some additional virtual tabletops. I know for exact, I'm going to be working with Ms. Persia, so I want to make sure, Jim, that we keep in sync. And anybody that needs any further outputs from this experiment that we did with SABER and the Checkpoint 16 exercise, we do have a video, Jim, and I believe you're in our newsletter we just put out yesterday. We put out a press release referencing our partnership with you. So for those of you who are, like a lot of y'all, sounds like there's a range of maturity on how you use SABER and your other information systems. Consider the Checkpoint 16 that we partnered with Jim on last week as a real nice job aid in learning to go back and look and see how it could be deployed and partnered. And with that, Jim, I'll pass it back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It was an excellent exchange that we were able to put together, and it was technologically pretty efficient too. Not a lot of cut and paste. Real things were moving there, so that was an accomplishment on both sides. So appreciate your comments. I thank everybody for participating, all of our speakers today. Excellent range. It's exactly what I was hoping for, to give a very wide range of capabilities that were there. And do appreciate all of your comments. And let me just wish you all a great couple of weeks until we get together again. And from the Washington, D.C. area to all across the country, thanks for participating today. Appreciate it very much.